Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today I have all of the secrets from the Cosmic Crucible playtest. This is the new game mode that is coming to the game. It'll actually be off here. It's going to be unlocked at level 60. There'll be like a whole new square here that you go to. And I played this on the playtest, and I'm finally allowed to talk to you about it. And I'm going to give you detail on how it works. I'm going to walk through everything that we've learned. I'm going to show you some images from the playtest so you can see for yourself. And then I'm going to talk to you about sort of, how things I think were hits and misses here, what I think of the game mode, what I think the issues are regarding it. So let me just explain to you what Cosmic Crucible is. So first of all, I'm just going to say this. If you've played Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, you're going to understand immediately that this is Scopely's attempt to copy Grand Arena Championship. So there's another game out there that you've heard me talk about a little bit that's basically, it came before Marvel Strike Force. It's basically the same kind of game, but they put Star Wars characters instead of Marvel characters. A lot of stuff in our game is copied from that game. This is no exception. Nothing wrong with that. That's just how games go, right? But let's take a look at what it is. I'm going to explain the concept, explain the rules, and then we could talk about some of the things, choices that they made and so forth. So this here is what sort of the map looks like for Cosmic Crucible. So what it is there's 8 players that are put into a bracket. Okay, they're supposedly going to be matched initially based on TCP, but then over time you're going to get a skill rating. So if you really suck or you just don't care about Cosmic Crucible and you don't really participate, your skill rating will go down. If you're a really awesome player, you've got a very efficiently built roster, whatever, over time your skill rating is going to go up. So when you're in this bracket of 8 based on your skill rating, what's going to happen is that everyone starts here over to the left, and then as you win or lose, you'll go up or down the ladder. So this is an image they gave us. It says, they say in the corner, work in progress. I captured my own images. They said we could not show those to you. So, but essentially, here these 4 people won their first match. These 4 lost. So you basically get matched randomly within the bracket of 8. Then, the 4 winners go up here, the 4 losers go here, and then the 4 winners are matched up against each other. And you see, then some of them go 2-0, some of them obviously will go 1-1, and then some of these folks will go into the 1-1 category and 0-2. Eventually, at the end, you're going to have one person who's going to go 3-0. That's just like Grand Arena. If you've ever played that game, it's very familiar. So how do you win or lose this game? How does it work? So here, this is, a bot apparently, but this is a player. These are 2 different players that are matched up against each other. The idea would be, let's say you have Philosopher versus Mobile Gamer or whatever. I would be matched up against him. And then we would actually play a match, and that would determine how we go up and down. So how do the rules work? Well, essentially, there's 8 rooms, I believe, that you place, that you have on defense that you put down. And you put down your 8 teams, and they put down their 8 teams. And essentially, it's who clears each other the best. So here is the copy of the rules in game, which I'm also allowed to show you. And they basically say, the bottom line is if I clear more rooms than the other guy, I win. So if Mobile Gamer clears all my rooms and I only clear 7 of his, then he wins because I couldn't clear all his rooms and he could clear all of mine. The tiebreakers, though, come in. This victory points tiebreaker come in if there is not a full clear on both sides. Okay, so if for example, let's say if we both full clear, let's say me and Mobile Gamer both clear all of each other's rooms, then the tiebreaker is these victory points. And they give you victory points based on a number of factors. So knockouts mean that if, for example, let's say we both cleared 5 rooms, but I happen to kill 2 of his characters in another room, well, I get some additional points for a knocked out character, a killed character, even if I didn't take the room. Okay, so that would be a tiebreaker. So if I get like 5.5 rooms down, right, and he only gets 5, well, then I get a victory there. Your attempt bonus, essentially this just means that if you get it, this essentially means that if you get it on the first attempt versus a third attempt, you get a better score. Okay, so you get a bonus once you beat a room, if you did it on the first attempt versus second, third, that's all going to seem very familiar to some of you who've played the other game mode I talked about. Healthy characters is just the health of your character, so I think that's a great tiebreaker. It gives you an advantage for making sure that your characters are healed up at the end. So, for example, if you finish if let's say both sides clear each other, but my characters are at full health at the end, I get a little bit of a bonus. And then there's this, what they call an efficiency bonus. I didn't really like this. Their idea of efficiency here, this is sort of a new concept to me, is who does it in the fewest game turns. So basically, if you play a team that takes a lot of turns to defeat the opponent, grinds it out, let's say a very defensive-oriented team, then you're going to get less efficiency points than if you put a team down that basically, let's say the Eternals just one-shots them very quickly. All right, so that will give you an efficiency bonus. It basically means that you have to try to have teams or build teams that knock out the other side quickly. One thing I will say is, this is a difference, by the way, from Galaxy Heroes. In Galaxy Heroes, the efficiency is how many characters you use. So if I use 2 characters to beat 5 in that game, I get an efficiency bonus. Here, what Scopely decided, that gives you an advantage, by the way, for having fewer characters that do well. Here, of course, the efficiency bonus is trying to get you to build your characters bigger so they steamroll the opponents faster. So it's just an incentive to build more. That's how I look at this design decision. Otherwise, this is really not that controversial to me. This piece of it is what it is. It's fine. So some of these rooms, one thing that they've done that is a very new design change, which I didn't expect, is they had some of the rooms have room bonuses, which is interesting. So here's an example of one. So they'll do this. So all the rooms have this. The defenders get 20% health and 10% damage, which is not enough really to overcome the fact that the AI is dumber than we are, right? It's much less than the bonuses a lot of teams get in war when they have cargo bay and med bay and barracks and all that, and all those bonuses. But anyway, some of the rooms, most of the rooms have some sort of modifier like this. So on each character's turn, both on the offense and defense, if each character has speed up, clear it and apply 2 turns of slow and trauma. So here's the thing. In concept, this is a very interesting thing. This is something that they didn't have in the game mode they were copying this from in Galaxy Heroes. What I like about it is it definitely forces you to understand how the game mechanics work for the teams. The problem with it is that they're very restrictive. So it ends up meaning that you're going to just end up using the same teams on defense, okay? Because, for example, your Infinity Watch or your Web Warriors that get speed up, well, this is going to hurt them a lot. And on defense, this generally, actually, these bonuses make it so the defenders do worse, okay? Because you as a human being can play around these handicaps. The computer, the AI does not do that. So generally speaking, this is sort of a pro offense, a pro player, or pro, controlling player thing. Is really a disadvantage. It's not a defender's advantage, it's a defender's disadvantage here because it applies to both sides. And then because only certain teams work in certain rooms, like, for example, you wouldn't want Web Warriors here because they're going to get a lot of speed up or whatever. What ends up happening is, like I said, you end up having pretty cookie-cutter defensive layouts. So, what is Crucible Combat going to look like? They gave us this image to show you, and this is also, I think, on their blog. I will just say, maybe at some point in time it's going to look like this. This seems like concept art or something. In the game right now, to get playtest, it did not look like this. It just looked like the standard environments that we constantly see. So what do I think of this game mode? Well, here's what I will say. I mean, it doesn't take long to do. Once you set your defenses, you can basically just keep the same defensive setup every time. So it's just doing 8 attacks a day. It's not super time consuming, but it's just yet another thing to do. I will say that one of my hopes here was that they were going to use this to replace an older game mode. In Galaxy Heroes, they put the power cores out of Arena into their Grand Arena, which is their version of Cosmic Crucible. And I'm sort of hoping that they do something to move something, move some of the responsibilities or the time out of these older game modes. Make it so we can blitz 1 time a day instead of 8 or something. Because it's just this is just yet another thing for us to do every day. And I think for a lot of us, there's just a lot of things. But I will say overall, not super time consuming. I think what I'm, but I will just say the game mode gets super repetitive because you basically can just set the same defense every time. A lot of teams don't even work well in some of the rooms. It's not, for some folks, I do think there'll be some challenge in figuring out what to counter with what. But I just think there'll be quickly videos, infographics. It's not going to be that hard to figure out. There is some theory crafting about how to get efficiency. There is some strategy to it in terms of playing the game, but it's definitely disappointing compared to what I expected. And some of you are going to say, wait, philosopher, why are you disappointed? Well, it's because I expected them to just copy Grand Arena, which is a much better game mode. And what I'll just say about it is, in Grand Arena, there's a reason why that game mode's been so popular and is the center point of that game and has spawned all sorts of streams and videos and tournaments and discords and strategy guides and everything, because it's a deep game mode. And one thing that is missing from this one that is in that one, and I'll just show you, this is some video I took of a Grand Arena game board, is the rooms in Grand Arena are set up so you can block each other with the rooms. So one thing that could be fun is if in Cosmic Crucible, if, for example, some of the rooms were in front of the other rooms, you could have a situation where you put your best team up front. Let's say I put my Dormammu and Eternals or whatever up front. I could block my opponent from even getting to the back rooms. Or I could put some teams up front that bait him into using his counters and then put a tough team in the back that he didn't have. He used his counters for. He doesn't have, oh, dang, Dormammu's in the back. What am I going to do? I already used my Eternals up front. This sort of thing is what you could do in this game mode here, because you could just put in this square. What I essentially did in this match was I put a bunch of characters up here that I knew he didn't have enough counters to defeat. And that really brings me to another point. So, here it gives you example of how it looks in that game mode, where you can put your 3 teams in that square. Well, essentially in that game mode, I knew this guy only had 2 teams, the Gas and CLS, that could counter these 3 teams. And so he was going to run out of teams because he didn't have enough to counter them. And that's because in that game mode, in Galaxy Heroes, I can also look at my opponent's roster. And so if you can see your opponent's roster, you might be able to see, okay, wait, he doesn't have Young Avengers, which, as we all know from using them in Avengers Tower, do counter the Infinity Watch, right, on defense. So I'll put my Infinity Watch on defense because I know he doesn't have Young Avengers built up. And so I could take advantage of that, right? Or whatever it may be. Or, he doesn't have an answer for my Uncanny Magic team or whatever. And you could put that down. Here, it's just blind. I don't really know what my opponent has. Maybe if they're a popular streamer, you could see, if you're facing me, you'll see, oh, you can look at my roster. But most players, you have no idea what their roster has. You don't know what's in it. And there's no strategy to what you put in the rooms other than just putting them blind. And that's an element that's missing. Now, I will just say, too, in Galaxy Heroes, in addition to, the map piece of it and the fact that I can see my opponent, I can even see what my opponent has done in future matches. So, for example, in prior matches, excuse me. So I can actually look at their history on their equivalent of MSF.gg and see, okay, he used this team against that team in the past and so on. Sort of like if you've ever played online poker and you could see, this guy folds 20% of the time or whatever. Or to give an analogy, if you've ever played poker, if you go to the poker table at the casino and you sit down and no one knows what your tendencies are, no one knows what kind of player you are. But if you sit there for 3 hours, they're like, the philosopher always folds, right? He's a very tight player, or he throws out a lot of crazy bets. You get to learn a player over time. So I won this match pretty handily, this particular match I'm showing you, because I did the opposite of what I had done in the past to trick him. Okay, I held back my most powerful characters, and I didn't put the usual defense down, and so he was stuck. He ended up choosing a bad strategy to counter what my actual strategy was. You could also, in that game, basically there's bots that you can analyze what your opponent's characters are, analyze their roster, and so on. It's all because they have an API. Now, we know, because I've done an interview at MSF.gg, the founders who now work for Scopely, they're not going to do that in our game. I think that can be okay. There's a fog of war component to it. But I will say it just means in this context where you can see there's no even blocking or whatever. The other side can just see my 8 teams. There's really no reason for me just not to set my best 8 defensive teams. You just kind of come up with a lineup and set it. Maybe if you keep facing the same people and over, like in your bracket or something over time, if you just keep bouncing around the same bracket, maybe you switch it up a little bit, but I don't see the reason to do it. I mean, basically what's going to just happen over time is that you're going to figure out what your strat is, what your defensive teams are, what your counters are. This ended up becoming very easy for me. I had no problem going 3-0 or whatever because it was just very simple. I did put down the same defensive teams every time, use my same offensive teams, and I purposely did it with a smaller roster. I had them give me a 15 million TCP roster just so I could see what it would be like to have more limitations on my roster. It was just fairly repetitive. So what do I think of this game mode? I think it's interesting. I think it's better than some of the game modes that are currently in this game, which is not saying much, right? Okay, it's definitely more interesting. Definitely more interesting than RTA. Definitely more interesting than Gamma Raid and this and that. It's actually a good game mode. I mean, I think it's fine. As it is, it's good. It could have been a lot better, and I'm just incredibly disappointed by it because I was really, really, really excited to play an MSF version of Grand Arena, and they managed to, when copying a game mode, take a lot of the good parts out of it. I don't know how you can screw something up when you copy it, but they actually made it worse instead of better. I don't know how or why they did that. I've given them that feedback. I don't expect Scopely to care about my views. I've given them that feedback very forcefully, but some of the disappointment you may have heard in some of my recent videos was also caused by seeing this game mode and how they screwed it up. So I think it's fine. I think it'll be fun to an extent. I think there'll be a theory crafting element to an extent. And I think what'll end up happening is people will end up kind of exchanging intel on players of what their defenses are. You'll change up your defenses a little bit, and it'll just be an additional chore. And how much time people put into it depends on the rewards. So if this ends up, if they do what Galaxy Heroes did, and they just go to these rewards, and they take all the power cores and they put them into Constant Crucible, people are going to put a lot of time into that game mode. I don't think they're going to do that because they just gave us a horseman that's arena focused, and presumably that means that they think they make a lot of money off of arena and they want to focus on that. So I don't even know what the rewards are. If the rewards aren't great, then people aren't going to pay attention to it much at all, and it's fine. It's moderately fun. Not what it could be, but I think it's a good game mode for what it is. All right, guys, if you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. If you got comments or questions, put them below. I'll answer what questions I can about the playtest. It's really not more complicated than I put out here. It's really fairly straightforward, but you can ask the questions below or in the Discord. I'll answer any questions I can. You can also go to my Twitch stream. That is linked below as well.